Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let's start our Alright. For this session, we're going to cover next chapter, which is JSP action. Okay, before we proceed with the next chapter, do you have any question for the project proposal? Every group has been submitted. Anyone
Yes, I have submitted.
have submit, right? Anyone or any group did not submit? Any problem? Yes, submitted. Yes, I've checked in iTa'lim. That seems the number of submission it's I think it's cover the group that we have. Okay. So if you do not have any question regarding the project proposal, I will access and evaluate the project proposal by tomorrow, and after tomorrow I will leave the feedback or approve your proposal. Okay, so once your project has approved or need to be reviewed, right? If I have approved, you can proceed with the project. If you need to review or you have the similar project, which we will not allow. Okay, again, please make sure that for the final project you need to include all technology that we're going to cover for the JSP. Right, so you have cover we have covered JSP, we have covered Sublet, and we're going to cover Java Bean for the next chapter. Okay, so for this chapter, we're going to finish the JSP. Okay, so again, for your final project, you need to include all these three technology, right, for your final project. Okay, so for next chapter, it will be JSP action, right? What we're going to cover is JSP include, right? We have cover also JSP include directive. You have covered this in last chapter, right? At include we call include directive, and for this chapter we cover this domain using JSP include. Okay, and we will cover what is different between this, right? What's the main difference, right? And what is the best to use, right? So before you choose any type of include to be used, you need to understand, right? What is the property or what is the character of each include. All right. Okay. Include JSP has two main capability for include file. Right. The first one we call JSP include, which is we call JSP action. Include action. Right. This one it include the output of the page at the request time. So when you have request, then it include the page. Right. For next one is include directive. Right. It's allowed developer to insert JSP code. This one it include all the JSP code into the main page. Then it translate into servlet. Right. For the request time, right? It not include all the code. It include only the output of the JSP into the main page. Right? That you need to understand. We have some example after this, but you need to remember that JSP action is include at the request time. Okay. The first one, right? For example, right? JSP include action. How to specify the include page, right? This is the syntax. You have JSP colon include the page equal to any folder that you have created in your server and any file name. For example, JSP colon include page. For example, you have folder name template, and inside the template you have header.jsp. Right, this is how to include. Okay. Second one, okay, example, right? JSP you include the header, and if you have parameter, this one parameter, title, value, my website, and you close the include. Okay, this one you include the footer. This one you include the header. This one you include the footer. Right? Almost similar to the directive, right? But the character is different. This one at the request time. Okay. Any question? The second one, right? Let's finish after you have listened to both JSP include, right? Then you can ask. Next one is include directive. Okay, include directive. It include file in the main page at the time the main page is translated. So we call the previous one is the at the request time. For the include directive, it include in the translation time. Okay, you need to remember request time and then translation time. For translation time, it take all the code of the JSP file that you have included into the main page and it translate, okay, to be one file. But for JSP action, it just take, okay, it just take the result of the JSP file you include and put into the main page. Okay. Okay, this is the main difference, right? You need to understand the main difference. Okay, the first one JSP include, second one include directive. Okay, this is the syntax we have covered. Okay, you have covered this one at directive, include any file name. Okay, for the first one, include action at the request time. Okay, this one at the translation time before it translate. This one it get the result. Okay, include it take the output of the file. Okay? For example, if 3 plus 2, it will become 5. So it take 5 to be included in the main page. So the servlet will be 2 files. One is the servlet for the main page. Another one is the servlet for the include file. Okay, but for include directive, right? Include directive, it take, for example, you have 3 plus 2, it take 3 plus 2 into the main, then it convert into the servlet or become one servlet. This we call, so it take the actual, this one, it take the actual content of JSP file, put into the main file, the main page, then it translate to be one servlet. That's why we call one servlet. Right, so it include file into the main page, right? Then the page is translate into the servlet. Okay, you get some idea what's the difference between this? Any question? Right, it's quite simple, but
Sir,
yes.
for the JSP include, we have to specify the path of the JSP file, but for the directive, we just write the name. Why is that like?
Similar, right? Similar. For example, this one,
Yes, we just say
the file,
header.js.
maybe this one, maybe you do not have a folder, right? But if you have parts, you need to include the part as well.
Also, if we have path, we have to include it on both.
Yeah. That is common. If not, it will not able to find. For example, this example, it do not have parts, right? This example, it has a part. Good question.
Okay, thank you,
Right?
sir.
For example, this question, for example, the example it also do not have parts. But for my example, I have parts. Right? The example, it do not have a part. Also file name, right? File name here. Okay. This one do not have part. For example, you put all the file in the one folder, then you just specify. Right? The part will be the command for any server that you need to specify, because the web server will not able to know where you put your file. It can read the file. You need to direct the server to be read. Okay, others question?
Sir, I have a question.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, while we are creating the project, is
Okay.
it better to do the coding in one JSP file, or is it better to do in separate JSP files? Then we can call them from
It
through the code.
better to do separate file. Right? Even if you're working outside, also it's better to separate, because in
Oh, okay.
one file it will be very complicated, and you might face a lot of error.
Oh, okay. So it's more efficient if we do it in separate files, yeah?
Yeah, it was sufficient, because you can create servlet, others file, you can create bin, others file, and you can just call. So you
Oh,
main page, you can just have a JSP, call servlet, call Java bin to
oh,
be
okay, okay.
right. That will be, I mean, you can utilize all the technology.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, others question? Very good. Any others question before we proceed? So you see the difference between include action and include directive. What do you think? Which the best to be used from this different? Right? Do you think which one is easier to be used or efficient to be used? Include action or include directive? Okay, let me ask you. Any answer? Or is for your opinion, you think which include is easy to be used? Include action or include directive? And specify your answer.
Personally, I prefer directives.
You prefer directive because
Yeah, it just looks easy to write.
it's easy to
The
write.
syntax is like I'm used to this syntax.
Yeah, okay. You prefer easy to use, right? Okay, some said here. Wajidi said he is agree with your answer. Any others answer? Any other answer? I have the answer after this. Right? Any others answer? Any others answer? Right? This one is include the result. This one is include the actual file. Actual file mean all the code put into the directive. Right? So in the management part of the code, JSP action is better because it just take the result to be included. Right? It's not mixed. But JSP include, it take all the file which that file might affected your main page. Right? So be careful when you choose. Okay. So that's why we have this. There are some maintenance problem we include directive, which I think you prefer to be used this, right? There are some maintenance problem with that. Okay, if you include the file, if the include file change, all the JSP file that use maybe need to be updated. Right? If you change, you include file, then your main page need to be recompile again, right? Recompile again, because the main server will not recognize the change. Okay, but if you use JSP action, it just take the result, right? Just take the result and display. Okay, so server only detect the main page for the chain, not the include file. This is the problem. So if you have chain, then you need to update the main file. Okay, the include directive should only be used in situation that JSP include is efficient. So based on the suggestion, JSP action include is the sufficient to be used. If you have other situation that JSP action include action is not sufficient, then you can use include directive. This is the suggestion, but for your project, it does not mean right you need to use this. But for the management part, JSP action is the better to be used. Right? Do you agree with this statement? Do you agree with this? This from the book philosophy. Do you agree with this philosophy? Because we have include all the file. So when we have chain, right? When we have chain, we need to update the main page, right? To get those results. Right? But JSP action, it just take the result. Right? So you does not need to update the main page. So it's less management part. Right? But the real life, the real code, right, it depends on you. Right? We are not forcing you to choose any, but just to let you know, there are some difference between this include, because for your project you need to use include a lot, because we encourage you to write the separate code, separate file, and you just call invoke, right? Invoke, you can invoke any method to be direct in your page, or if you really just need the result of that page, then you just call include action, right? But if you want to include all the code and come to compile in your main page, then you need to call by include directive, right? So you need to understand the difference between this include, because it might not working. Then you need to understand the character of each that you have call or you have include. It will affect the result, right, that you need to be used. Okay.
Sir,
Yes. Any question?
so include directive cannot process the dynamic resource, right?
Include directive
Cannot process the dynamic resource.
cannot process
The
dynamic.
dynamic resource.
No, both can process the dynamic. The only that the include directive, it will take all the code into the main page and it translate. That's
Sir,
what we
I
call
see,
translation time.
in the online, I see there include action can handle it HTML and CSS, but include directive cannot process the dynamic resource. Is it?
Dynamic. What you mean by dynamic? Right? There are many definitions for dynamic.
I send the screenshot.
Right? Okay. I think the main thing that you need to understand is the request time and then the translation time. For the dynamic content, you might refer, if you have created and you call page, you might declare the method, and that method might be change the result. That also dynamic, but both can be included. Right? Both can be called, can be used. Right? I'm not sure which dynamic you are referred to. Right? If I see the code, maybe it will be more clear. Any others question? Right? This chapter is very short, just for JSP action, right? JSP action, and we see the difference between JSP action. Others, the last part is not important. That's why I just make it very short, right? The only thing that you going to use. Right? For others information, you can refer to the main slide, right? Okay, and again, I will make a short tutorial how to use this, and I will show you the difference, right? The difference between what you call by JSP action and JSP directive, right? For example, the main page, yes?
I see here the key difference between include action and include directive is the include can only include content of resource like HTML and CSS, but will not process the dynamic resource. Is that true? I don't understand this one.
Dynamic, I think it not include all the contents of that. I think
Oh,
you want to highlight that. For include directive, right?
yes.
It will include all the file,
Oh,
right?
okay.
For JSP action, it just include the result, right? Not all the file. Then that I refer to the dynamic event. I think that slide try to be. That's why that slide is quite complicated. That's why I make it very simple for you to understand.
Okay.
If we are face to face, I will explain one by one.
Thank you, sir.
That's why I make it very simple, and the main thing that you need to understand: request time, translation time. I include the result and it include all the file. Right? I think one I have make the video tutorial. I think you will see the difference between this clearly, right? But theoretically, you have to understand that.
Okay.
Okay, some said Nazmi, in the example JSP, okay, the example, I think someone refer to this example, I noticed it. The example, right? With the close and without close, right? So this close, you see, you have an extra line here. If you have only one line, then you can close here directly, right? Okay. So this one is JSP action, it has close, right? JSP directive, right? Does not need to close this, right? You just close with the percentage. Okay, this is the difference. This close here, right? This one you does not use a percentage. Okay, different. This JSP action. This one JSP action. You close by percentage. Okay, JSP. JSP directive. You close by open and close by percentage. For JSP action, you open and close by slash. This one. That's syntax, right? That's syntax. You need to follow the syntax guideline. Any other question you can write here, or you can open your mic because we have only 15% here. Many of you did not join the class, and some also dropped the course, has dropped the course. Okay, I will end the record. I will end the record, I think, because